If you're a controller player, we all know how frustrating it can be to be missing shots within Marvel Rivals, whether that be actual long range projectiles or just hitting your combos in general with a melee based hero. And also trying to compete with keyboard and mouse players is extremely difficult in this game, if I'm being perfectly honest. So this video is going to give you the best settings to use when you're playing on controller. Now there's only two settings you need to concern yourself with within this game. One is the linear curve and the other one is the dual zone S curve, and there's slight differences between the two, but let's get into the linear curve first. Let's start off with the linear settings first. We want to go over the settings you don't need to adjust. So we're going to skip the horizontal and vertical for now. And we're going to get into linear, and linear gives you a gradual movement in your aim, so there's no extra speed boost or anything like that unless you set your max dead zone. And your minimum dead zone should be between 2 and 5. Anything higher than 5 means you need a new controller essentially, if I'm being perfectly honest. Then when it comes to the maximum dead zone, I recommend this 1 or 0, it's basically the same thing anyway. Then when it comes to max dead zone sensitivity boost, what this does is once you hit the edge of your stick, so once you hit the edge of your analog stick, basically at that point is where you get a speed boost in your aim. Now what this is going to be useful for is if you're using a ranged projectile hero and then you get dived on by a Venom or Iron Fist or Black Panther, you can spin round a lot quicker. So this, in my opinion, should be no lower than 60. And then no higher than 80. I think basically getting it to 100, unless you're really skilled, then it's quite difficult to kind of manage. Plus it also affects your horizontal and vertical stick. So just keep that in mind when you're doing this. So 60 and 70 is my perfect range for this. Horizontal max dead zone response time. Now you can have the fastest possible response time if you set this to 0. But I do think when you hit the edge of that stick, you want a couple of seconds to know if this is something you definitely want to do or not. And 20 milliseconds, which is what this actually means, is a decent amount of time. It's a good amount of time for you to react to whether or not you want to make that adjustment or not. If you go lower than this, it's kind of just going to do it itself and you've not got much time to react on whether or not you've put a wrong input into your game. Then swapping the sticks and invert looks, we've got off. Minimum aim assist window size should be between 10 and no higher than 20. You want to be as close to your target as possible when you start getting aim assist. You don't want to be getting aim assist all the way outside the target range. And then your aim assist strength should be at 100 and your ease in should be set to 0 so that basically it snaps straight onto the target. You don't want it to slow down before you get to the target. You want it to be slow at the target you're on. Now what we're going to do is collapse these settings and focus on the horizontal and vertical stick. Now the horizontal stick should always be slightly higher than your vertical stick because most targets move horizontally at the same level as you. So if you're a ground based hero, then that is basically where more of the players are going to be. Vertical stick should be slightly lower in my opinion. Some people have this set to exactly the same. That also can work as well. But I think you need a bit more fine tune when you're aiming up and down. It's a bit more difficult to do, but also you don't want to be shooting far off of flying targets. You want to make sure you are able to land those shots on them because it is difficult to track them, because not only are they flying vertically upwards, they also can move horizontally, kind of different to the ground based heroes where they can only move horizontal. So that's what I'm saying, you want to make sure you've got that fine tune to take out those aerial targets. Linear is a good baseline for most players within this game. I think it's a good starting point, and not only that, with the slight adjustments I have made here, basically linear is the default setting, so it's the one that you're probably used to using if you haven't adjusted your settings already. But if you want a bit more control when it comes to your aim, then you want to switch to the dual zone S curve. Now this is not for everyone. I do want to basically prerequisite this because some people don't like the idea of S curve aim assist, but I think this works perfectly for long range heroes within Marvel Rivals, and also even some melee based heroes, to make sure you're able to snap round and get your combos off a lot quicker. Now let's get on into the S curve settings. This one I recommend copying pretty much exactly, and then I'll go over what we can adjust slightly to your preference. Horizontal and vertical stick is my personal preference to have 165 and 105. This works great for me, taking out aerial targets, ground targets, flying targets, moving targets, diving targets. This works perfect for me, to be honest. Then when we got the response curve, we're choosing dual zone S curve. And then when we open up the advanced section here, we have it set to minimum range is 30. The maximum range is 90. The minimum curve statics is 60 and the dual zone curve is 99. That is my personal settings, and this is my specific curve that I have set up, because you can play around and make your own curves up in this game. That's how it actually works. And if you know a lot about what you're doing with this, then obviously you can play around with it. But this is my personal best settings. Minimum dead zone, again, between that 2 and 5, like I recommend to you. Depends on how old or new your controller is, but this is how you should play around with this one. Maximum dead zone's 1. Sensitivity boost, again, I have set to 60, but you can do that up to 70 or 80, like I mentioned. And then the horizontal max dead zone response time here is 20. Then when we go down to the bottom here, as you can see, we've got the aim assist window size is the same, aim assist strength is 100, and the aim assist ease in is at 30 now, and that is because the S curve changes this setting. So you do want to change this along with the S curve. So it's not the same as linear, that's why I've adjusted it to be slightly higher. Unlike linear, where your aim is gradual, with the S curve, when you have the minimum range and the maximum range, basically these are thresholds where your aim is changing speeds essentially. So when you're in that middle portion is where you're getting the gradual aim similar to linear. Before that you're getting a ramp up, and then after that you're getting a ramp kind of down or a ramp up as well. So it depends on which part of the analog stick you're getting to. I know it sounds a bit strange, but that is basically how this works. Now this is really useful if you're trying to turn on enemies, or if you're trying to get really snappy aim to snap to an enemy quicker. Instead of it being gradual, it's going to basically snap faster the more you move your analog stick. And I personally prefer this. I've just been using this for a very long time on other games, especially Call of Duty, but if you're coming from those games, I recommend the settings that I have with this S curve. Now if you enjoyed this video and you found these settings helpful, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and also check out one of our other videos as well, which will be on screen at the moment. And thank you very much for watching.